how you guys doing today? So look, I wanted to do a video on the Pokemon movies. I remember the first movie being extremely overly serious when I was a child. I remember borrowing this movie from a Mexican friend I had because I had it on videotape. Excuse me. He had it on videotape and he let me borrow it. And I remember watching it, and I remember as a kid thinking that it was extremely overly serious. But I really liked it as a kid. I watched it multiple times. I really enjoyed it. But it was an extremely serious movie. Like, why is this movie so damn serious for a first movie? But I remember Mewtwo's backstory. We see him in the lab, and then, Giovanni is, of course, using him as his Pokemon to beat everybody in the freaking last gym to get the Earth Badge. Like, nobody could get it when Giovanni is using Mewtwo. And one thing I remember in the movie and in the TV show is we actually see Gary with his Arcanine and Nidoking trying to fight Mewtwo, and then he loses. And it shows that both in the anime and the movie. Because I remember in the anime, it actually shows that little scene where it shows it. Well, it shows like the scene with Gary in the movie, and then it shows Gary coming out of the gym and being like, "Man, you're not gonna beat that gym, Ash." But Ash ends up fighting our Team Rocket, Jesse James and Meowth, and Giovanni leaves because we end up seeing Mewtwo breaking out of the gym and flying away, which I always thought was really cool. I like how we got to see a part of the movie in the anime. I always thought that was really cool. But this movie was always very serious to me, and I always thought like every scene with Mew was really freaking adorable and cute. Like everything he does is cute. And I always felt that this movie was very sad when it comes to Mewtwo, because Mewtwo doesn't really know who he is. He has a lot of resentment for humans. He can't stand them. And he ends up being this secret trainer where our main characters end up going to that the mysterious island or whatever, and there's like this big storm. In a lot of the Pokemon movies, the first couple of them at least, there's always this big storm going on. And of course, our heroes end up going to that island, and then we got the whole the sad little thing that happens where Ash turns to stone, and then all the clone Pokemon are fighting the real Pokemon, and it's a very serious movie. I'm pretty sure people as kids probably cried when they saw Ash turn to stone. I also remember that if you actually went to the movie theater released version of this, you actually can get like an Ancient Mew card, and they actually show an Ancient Mew picture in the movie, which I thought was pretty cool. My cousin, for some reason, had like 30 of those Ancient Mew cards. I remember we went into his garage one time, and he literally had like 30 of them, and he let me have like 3 or 4 of them, which was really cool. And if I remember correctly, he had like 4 or 5 Blue Eyes Shining Dragons too. I think he gave me one of those too. I don't know why he had so many of those, but he had like 5 or 6 of the Blue Eyes Shining, and he had like 10 Ancient Mew cards for some reason, which I thought was pretty cool. Shout out to my cousin. That was pretty cool, and he gave me some. So shout out to him for that too. Something that was pretty interesting is later on, I actually ended up finding out that there's like this little part of the movie where basically the professor is trying to clone his dead daughter. His daughter died, and he's trying to clone his dead daughter, and his wife actually leaves him, and he's trying to create Mewtwo and 3 clone starter Pokemon, which is Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charmander, and he's also trying to clone his dead daughter. And there's like this very interesting kind of weird scene where it shows him inside of this like dreamlike sequence thing. It's like while they're being created, they're in like this weird like dream world kind of thing, or like a virtual world like Digimon or something. And they're like floating around the city, and then Mewtwo is small and cute and adorable, and he looks more close to how Mew looks. And the daughter's like teaching him things and telling him all these things, and she's like best friends with him. And then the daughter ends up disappearing and dying because her clone ends up being a failure. They couldn't clone the daughter, and then Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charmander end up not being able to be cloned, and they die too. But Mewtwo survives, and he breaks out of the machine or whatever, and he gets bigger. I actually had never seen that. In the English version, they did not show that in the movie theater at all, from what I've heard. But they do, apparently, if you get like the DVD, they have the extras where they show that scene. I saw that scene on YouTube, and I saw the Japanese version of that scene on YouTube a while back, probably like a year or two ago. And I thought that was pretty deep because I was like, I didn't even know this was part of the movie. What the hell? But it was pretty interesting and it's pretty cool and it's very sad. I think that would have made the movie like too sad. The movie's already sad enough. Um, this movie does give me kind of an Akira vibe in the sense of Mewtwo being like a mutated person and having these extremely strong psychic powers. But I like the Pokemon the first movie way more than Akira. I just don't really like Akira that much when it comes to the story. When it comes to the visuals, I think it looks beautiful, but the story is just like, it doesn't really have no story because they were trying to rush that shit. It should have been like 3 or 4 movies. But this Pokemon movie, to me, it always had this very serious tone. And seeing Donphan was pretty cool. And I just love it because Donphan's a Johto Pokemon. And I always love when they would show Pokemon that were from the newer region. They showed them early. They would show like one of them. Like I remember the Blaziken that Charizard fought in the Pokemon League. That was really cool. That was like before we even knew what Hoenn was. So it just made it really cool. It's like, oh, who's this new Pokemon? It was always hype when you would see a new Pokemon from the next region that Ash is going to go to. Like just like how Togepi is a Johto Pokemon, but we see it all through Kanto. You know, so people, I remember a lot of kids being confused because it wasn't in red, blue, and yellow. Oh, and Ho-Oh too, of course. Ho-Oh is a Johto Pokemon, and we got to see that. And I think it was the first episode where we see the golden flying Ho-Oh. But yeah, this movie, it's not boring, but it's just very serious, which when you're a child, that can kind of take you out of the movie. You know, kids usually like happy-go-lucky stuff, you know, because they're still high on life. You don't want to see a whole bunch of sad stuff as a child. But rewatching it as an adult, it's like your feelings for it change because you see more of the more serious tone of it. And as a movie, I thought it was really good. I think it's a really good movie. But it does have an extremely overly serious tone. But yeah, I did enjoy it. I always did feel sad for Mewtwo. And I always thought the thing that made Mewtwo so interesting is he's half Pokemon, half human. I remember as a kid, I didn't notice that. But apparently, from what I've heard, he has Giovanni's DNA in him. And it could be wrong. Maybe it's just a fan theory. But he has Giovanni's DNA and Mew's DNA. That's what I've heard. I know for sure he has Mew's DNA. That's pretty obvious. One thing I always thought was weird about it too, and pretty interesting, is that Mewtwo in the Pokédex is number 150, and Mew is 151. I always thought that was really weird because I'm like, Mewtwo is a clone of Mew. But I guess technically you could still say Mew is undiscovered. But like that was always like a weird thing to me as a kid. It's like, but it's not undiscovered because you guys know that there's a Mew, and you cloned Mew and made Mewtwo. So why is Mewtwo 150 and Mew is 151? I always thought that was so weird. But anyway, it's still a good movie. It still holds up in my opinion. It still has good writing, still has good animation. And again, the whole surprise getting to see a Johto Pokemon early, you know, Donphan or whatever. I remember as a kid, I thought I was tripping. I was like, why is that a Donphan? Is Donphan really in that movie? I remember as a kid, I thought I was like tripping sometimes when I would see them watch a part of the movie because I'm like, what the hell? But if you guys like my, little reviews or whatever, like, comment, subscribe. If you just need friends, like, comment, subscribe, hit me up. My social media is literally the same thing as my YouTube videos. And, yeah, do some discussions in the comment section. You know, let's have some fun. Peace and blessings.